protein usually means meat, eggs or dairy, but there are crops you can grow at home that will pack a serious protein punch. In this video, I'm going to show you how to grow 5 of the most protein-rich crops, from reliable staples like peas and beans to a lesser-known weed that you could use to replace those expensive protein powders. Best of all, they are easy to grow and will of course support healthy muscle growth. I'm pumped to get started. Let's go. Some of the easiest crops you can grow just happen to be packed with protein. Better still, many of them will help enrich the soil for future crops by fixing nitrogen from the air, including our first protein-packed powerhouse, beans. These here are my fava or broad beans, and they are devastatingly easy to grow. You just push the big, fat, plump seeds into the soil where they are to grow, and bosh, here they are. And at 8 grams of protein per 100 grams, these really are loaded with the good stuff. Now they're beginning to get a little bit taller, so just to be on the safe side, I'm gonna put in some supports just to keep them all hemmed in and from toppling over. Just get a post into each corner, and then run some horizontal string along. These really very beautiful beans are a joy to grow because they are so easy, but so are many warm season beans, including these guys here, which are soybeans, otherwise known as edamame. And if you thought these were high in protein, well, these will knock your socks off at 36 grams of protein per 100 grams. Soybeans are perhaps not an obvious choice for my temperate climate, but it's late spring now, the soil is warm, so sowing them now should give us a nice crop of pods by late summer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little hole, and I'm going to sow 2 seeds into each hole about 1 to 2 inches or 3 to 5 centimeters deep, and then space the next little hole in 2 seeds about 6 inches or 15 centimeters along. And I'm choosing a fast maturing variety that is purpose sold for slightly cooler climates like mine. Climbing beans are good for protein too, and worth growing for their sheer abundance. Now obviously you'll need some sort of support. You can put them against a teepee of canes, some sort of trellis, or as I'm doing here, a arch support. Climbing beans are one of the most generous crops you can grow. They're like vertical protein factories. They might not be quite as high in protein as, say, soybeans or fava or broad beans. They come in at 1.5 to 2 grams per 100 grams when you include the pod, but they make my list for their sheer abundance and all summer long. Peas are another fantastic source of protein, and they are very quick growing. These guys here were sown at the end of winter and then planted out only 2 weeks ago when they were half the size they are now, and you can see they are already beginning to sprawl their way upwards. Peas love something to grab onto. Now dwarf varieties will happily grow up something like little sticky bits or pea sticks, while climbing peas, which are these guys, will need some kind of netting or string mesh such as this. The way I start my peas off is in either little pots or decent size plug trays like this, just popping in my seeds, making holes up to my first knuckle on the finger, and then popping them in, but you can of course sow them direct where they are to grow. The trick then is just to keep them well watered and plant them out, and then within a matter of months you'll be picking those delicious, tender, sweet pea pods. Mange tout, sugar snaps, shelling peas, take your pick. They are all rich in protein. Now these climbing peas I've planted about 6 inches or 15 centimeters apart in a single row, which is more than enough to start their skyward ascent, and they'll cover this whole screen here, creating quite the backdrop to the vegetable garden. If you haven't already done so, get on and start your peas pronto, and you'll be picking those pods in a couple of months. Peas are very straightforward to grow. The main job for you is really just to keep on watering in dry weather and to pick those pods regularly as they appear to keep them coming. And at 5 grams of protein per 100 grams, this is a plant that produces lots of that essential nutrient. Or for something a little different, why not try chickpeas or lentils? Both of these sunshine-loving crops from the Mediterranean and Near East love a well-drained soil, and while they may not be quite as prolific as those peas or beans, they more than make up for it in their very high protein content. Now here is where things get really interesting. Did you know that some of the most protein-rich crops you can grow aren't legumes like peas or beans, but in fact grains? Now you've probably heard of quinoa. Well, this here is amaranth. It's very similar indeed to quinoa, but a bit easier to grow. No sense in making life difficult for yourself, I say, and that's why I'm choosing to grow this stuff this summer. As a bonus, you can also eat the leaves, which can be enjoyed a bit like spinach. My favourite thing about amaranth, however, has to be the mind-blowingly long list of alternative names for it, including Aroa Jaja, Bayam, Callaloo, Cararoo, Doogie, Lulshak, Noteshak and Vlita, to name a few. Now the seeds are impossibly tiny. There they are, look. And the simple way to sow them is just to surface sow them into soil that's been raked to a nice fine tilth. Just scatter your seeds like that over the top. And then all I'm going to do is simply lightly rake them in just so they're in contact with the soil, and then pat it down with the back of the rake and then give it all a good water, and that's it. I'm going to keep this area nice and moist and as warm as I can, and then the seedlings should pop up surprisingly quickly. Now they germinate fastest at temperatures of around 60 Fahrenheit or 15 degrees Celsius or higher. That's the soil temperature. And at this time of year, that can be a little tricky. It's sometimes worth waiting until early summer, but I have a little bit of a workaround. These old secondary glazing units are perfect for creating a bit of a warm and cozy microclimate under there. I'll keep them in place until the seedlings come up, which should be, you know, just less than 2 weeks really. And then once they are, I'll thin out the plants in stages until they are about 18 inches or 45 centimetres apart. You can also sow amaranth into plug trays to get an even earlier start, and then just plant them out into a sunny spot once it's warmed up a bit. Amaranth grows into tall, striking plants if you can offer them a warm and sunny, almost baking spot. Now they do like it warm, but there's no harm in giving them a bit of water every now and then to keep them growing at a good pace. And if they do get a bit tall and top heavy, well, you can always stake them. Enjoy some of the leaves for sure, but it is the seeds that offer the truly protein-rich grains. 2 crops or 2 harvests from one plant isn't bad, and plenty of protein along the way, which at 14 grams per 100 grams isn't bad at all. Now for something a little bit unexpected, at least in my temperate climate, peanuts. Yes, you really can grow peanuts in a less than warm climate. Now in my garden that will mean tucking them in somewhere warm, so that means either the greenhouse or a sun-kissed patio. Peanuts love warmth, so growing them in pots or a greenhouse bed is a must. Now, I've had my peanut seeds soaking for about 12 hours overnight in lukewarm water, and you can see that they've swollen up a bit. So that means they're primed and ready to sow, and I'm just going to sow them into a fine all-purpose potting mix into little plug trays like this, as if I was sowing, you know, peas or beans. So in one goes into each little plug. It seems kind of funny sowing peanuts. It's, I don't know, it just feels a bit odd, doesn't it? But these will keep nice and warm, and I'll keep them well watered, and they should pop up within about 2 weeks, and then I can plant them into the greenhouse borders or indeed a pot. But it needs to be sheltered from cold winds and be as warm and sunny as possible. Things get really interesting after flowering. As the blooms fade, the plants produce what are called pegs that thrust down into the soil, and that's where the peanuts actually form. Yes, peanuts actually grow underground. That kind of blew my mind when I first found that out, but it also makes sense when you consider that the other name for peanuts is ground nuts. Kind of like the horticultural equivalent of like an ostrich burying its head, isn't it? And that makes peanuts not in fact nuts, but actually in the same family as peas and beans, legumes. Have you grown peanuts before? If you have, then let me know any tips you might have in the comments below. Now I should know they are ready to harvest when the foliage starts to yellow, usually in early autumn, and at this point I can grab the plant by the thrust of its neck, pull it up and then reveal all of those peanuts attached to the roots. Peanuts certainly are one of the more quirky harvests you can enjoy, and at 25 grams per 100 grams protein content, it's also one of the most protein-rich things you can grow. 25 grams! That's nuts! And now for my wild card, and I'll let you into a little secret. This stuff here is a superfood, the new superfood, and you heard it here first. And what I have here is Wolffii globosa, common name Watermeal. It doesn't look like much, does it? But looks can be deceiving, my friend. This is gold. This really very small floating plant is actually very special as well. It's the smallest flowering plant on Earth, and it grows very quickly. It can double in the area that it occupies in just a few days, making this a very tiny plant with a big potential. Now, you don't need much to grow watermeal, and because it's a floating plant, you can get away with something very shallow like this. This is black, which will attract the heat and, you know, make it a bit warmer, because this is a warmer kind of climate crop. And then in goes some clean rainwater. You could also use tap water, but just make sure it's dechlorinated. And to do that, all you need to do is simply pour it and then leave it as it is for 24 hours for the chlorine just to evaporate off. Nothing fancy. So in goes our water. And next, just a tiny bit of nutrients to help our watermeal get their teeth into. So I'm just using an balanced all-purpose kind of liquid feed like that at about 1/5 normal strength. So probably just 1/8 of a cap like that, and then just frisk it in, and then we'll pitch our watermeal. So that's our watermeal in, and there's a bit around the side here, so I'm just gonna kind of swish it out, a bit like as if you're using a pasta sauce and you're putting a bit of water in to get every last drop out. There we are. Now this stuff likes to grow in quite warm conditions, so in my climate I'm just going to have it indoors at a warm room temperature for now until things warm up consistently later on in the summer. Keep it out of really harsh direct sun, which could encourage algae to kind of propagate rather than our watermeal, so it needs to be bright but not really harsh sun. This stuff grows at lightning speed, so you can see that introducing it into natural waterways could be a problem in some areas. In fact, in many regions, this is considered an invasive species, and there are rules prohibiting growing it. So just check the situation locally to you. Now, once this does cover the surface, I can just harvest with maybe a tea strainer or similar, scoop some out, and then have that fresh or dried, and then leave some in there to grow on for the next batch. And if you dry it, you can make a beautiful powder like this. Isn't it beautiful and vibrant green? This stuff is gold added to smoothies, and you can buy it online, but growing your own is going to be much more satisfying. And the protein content of this stuff is between 20 grams per 100 grams and, wait for it, up to 50 grams per 100 when dried. So this really is our protein crown taker. I'm green fingered and thumbed, kind of appropriate, wouldn't you say? Now there's more on growing beans, by the way, in the free download of my book. It may be an abridged version, but at over 100 pages, there is still plenty in there to keep you busy this spring. Just head on over here to claim your free copy, and I will catch you next time.